If you've made it this far, I know this story touched something deep within you, just like it did for us. But now I want to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. And if this one stirred your heart, even just a little, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Tomorrow, a brand new story awaits, and trust me, it's one you won't want to miss. Ava Bennett never dreamed her wedding day would feel like a hostage situation. At 27, she had always been the quiet one, the background character in her family's drama, the one who painted in silence while others made the noise. But that morning, everything changed. Her sister, Juliet, the dazzling, confident, and beloved eldest daughter, had disappeared. Hours before the ceremony, she simply vanished, leaving behind $1 million dress, a cathedral full of elite guests, and a blind groom waiting at the altar. And now it was Ava who stood in front of the mirror, drowning in a gown that wasn't hers, surrounded by assistants who didn't look her in the eye. Her mother's voice echoed like a whip in the dressing room. "Don't argue. You're the only one who can fix this. He can't see. He won't know." But Ava knew. She could feel it in her chest, like a stone lodged in her throat. The some pearls around her neck belonged to Juliet. The heels on her feet were 2 sizes too tight. Even the perfume misted over her skin was Juliet's signature scent, jasmine and vanilla, expensive and overwhelming. Every part of her screamed, someone else. Still, her mother pressed her forward, fingers cold and commanding. "This is not about you," she said, locking eyes with Ava in the mirror. "This is about our family's future, about survival." The wedding was being streamed live, a spectacle of wealth and elegance meant to cement alliances and legacies. And the man at the center of it all? Grayson Hale, 35, a brilliant tech magnate, blind since the accident 2 years ago, quiet, mysterious, worth billions. He was the golden ticket, the prize Juliet had spent a year courting, through late-night calls, orchestrated meetups, carefully crafted lies. Now Ava was being told to wear that lie like a mask and walk straight into a life that wasn't hers. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. No one listened. The church bells began to ring. The wedding coordinator banged on the door, counting down the minutes. Her mother kissed her on the cheek, a gesture that felt more like a branding than affection, then shoved her bouquet into her hands. Ava stared at her reflection one last time, a woman made up of silk, fear, and borrowed identity, then turned toward the aisle. As the doors opened, 1,000 eyes turned to her. Flashes from cameras sparked like lightning. The weight of the veil on her head was nothing compared to the weight in her chest. And down at the end of that aisle, in a tailored navy suit, stood Grayson, still, composed, eyes closed, but head lifted, as if listening for something no one else could hear. Ava took one breath, then stepped forward. Each step echoed louder than the last. This was the beginning of a lie that might just rewrite everything. Ava's footsteps echoed through the cathedral like distant thunder, but Grayson Hale didn't flinch. He stood tall at the altar, blind eyes half closed, his face calm, unreadable. From the outside, it looked perfect. A beautiful bride, a poised groom, a fairy tale unfolding under stained glass and soft candlelight. But inside Ava's chest, everything was trembling. Every movement, every breath felt like walking across thin ice. She reached him, and for a brief moment, time froze. The priest's voice rang out, asking the question no one had dared to ask her in private. "Do you, Ava?" The name on the license had been changed, of course. "Take Grayson Hale as your lawfully wedded husband?" She hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. "I do," she whispered. The words barely left her lips before Grayson turned his head slightly, as if tracking something only he could sense. His voice, when it came, was low, calm, but sharp. "Why are you shaking?" he asked. "Are you afraid I'll see you?" Ava's throat went dry. He wasn't supposed to ask that. Not yet. Not now. But the way he said it was like he knew. Not knew exactly who she was, but that something was off. Off enough to make him pay attention. The applause erupted, the guests cheered, and cameras flashed again. But Grayson, he didn't smile. He didn't lean in for a kiss. He just stood there, still, unreadable, listening. Later, in the back of the black Rolls-Royce that pulled away from St. Andrew's Cathedral, Ava sat beside her new husband in silence. The air between them felt tighter than the corset under her gown. Grayson had his eyes closed, head tilted slightly back, not asleep. Just listening. To the way her silk dress rustled when she shifted, to the tiny tap of her heel against the floor, to the rhythm of her breathing, uneven, tense. At the estate, the world only got quieter. The home was massive, 6,000 square feet of wood and glass tucked into the Colorado Rockies, but it felt more like a museum than a place someone lived. No laughter, no warmth, just perfectly arranged furniture and air that never moved. During dinner, Ava tried to smile, to eat, to pretend, but every bite tasted like guilt. Then Grayson spoke again. "Your voice," he said. "It's different." She froze. He continued, soft but precise. Slower, softer. A little rasp at the end. He sniffed the air gently. "And the perfume. You changed it." Ava tried to recover. "It's just been a long day." Grayson didn't press. He simply nodded once, as if filing the details away. But Ava could feel it. He wasn't blind to her. Not really. He was reading her like a book, sentence by sentence. And maybe the most terrifying part was this. She didn't know how long it would take before he finished the last page and saw everything. From the outside, Grayson Hale's estate was breathtaking. All glass walls, exposed timber, and mountain views that stretched for miles. But inside, it was a different story. The house felt more like a gallery than a home. Curated, silent, cold. Every room was perfect, untouched. There were no personal photos, no signs of life. The air smelled faintly of lavender and lemon wood polish. Not lived in, but staged. Ava moved through it like a guest on borrowed time. In the early days of their marriage, silence ruled everything. No arguments, no questions, just routine. At precisely 6:45 each morning, the housekeeper left a tray at their door. By 8, Grayson was seated in the sunroom, facing east, listening to classical music, usually Chopin. Ava learned this by observing, not asking. She didn't dare ask. He spoke little, but when he did, his words always seemed to cut deeper than intended, like he was peeling something back, layer by layer, waiting to see what was real underneath. But then something changed. It started with a cup of coffee. Not the one left by staff, but one she made herself. Strong, 2 sugars, a touch of cream. She placed it in front of him one morning, quietly. Grayson reached out, found the cup, and paused. "You made this?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded, realizing he couldn't see that. "Yes," she said softly. "Thought I'd try something different." He didn't respond, just sipped slowly, and for the first time, didn't set the cup aside. The next day she tried breakfast. Eggs, toast, a slice of melon. Simple, but fresh. He said nothing, but he finished the plate. Each morning after, she woke before sunrise, moving through the kitchen barefoot, trying not to wake anyone. She stopped relying on the staff. She began learning the routines he preferred, the way he liked his books placed with the spine facing left, the exact order of the records in his vinyl collection, how he tilted his head when he was focusing, on sound alone. One afternoon, while he napped on the sofa, she cleaned his study. It was a 12 by 14-foot room with floor-to-ceiling shelves and a heavy mahogany desk no one had touched in years. When Grayson found her there, wiping dust from a penholder, he stopped in the doorway. "She never came in here," he said. No name, but they both knew who she was. Ava didn't lie. "I just thought it could use a little life," she replied. Grayson said nothing, but his fingers lingered on the polished surface of the desk longer than necessary. From that moment, their silence shifted. They started walking together in the garden. He let her guide him. No cane, no hesitation. She described the colors of the sunset, the scent of fresh pine, the soft crunch of gravel beneath their feet. He listened, really listened. But even as something tender began to grow, Ava knew the foundation was still built on lies. And Grayson, he might be blind, but he was watching her in a way no one ever had. The days moved slowly in the Hale estate, but the silence between Ava and Grayson had shifted into something delicate. He still hadn't confronted her, not directly. Yet with every shared moment, each walk through the garden, every quiet breakfast she cooked from memory, Ava felt the unspoken truth hovering between them. She could sense it in the way he tilted his head when she spoke, or how he lingered just a beat longer after touching her hand. He knew something. She was sure of it, and the question wasn't if he would find out. It was when. Then, one cold October morning, Grayson broke the silence. "There's a doctor," he said, his voice low but firm. "In Boston. They've developed a new surgical method. It's risky, but there's a chance I could see again." Ava's heart stopped. She managed a nod, though her breath caught in her throat. "When?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "I leave next week," he replied, then added, almost to himself, "If it works, the first thing I'll see will be you." She smiled, but her stomach twisted. That night, she couldn't sleep. She watched him from across the room as he lay in bed, calm and composed. Her chest ached at the thought of him opening his eyes, only to discover that the woman who had held his hand, whispered poetry, and rebuilt his world, wasn't who she claimed to be. The lies she had told were never meant to hurt him, but now the truth felt like a blade pressed gently against both their throats. The morning of the surgery came with soft sunlight and cold air. At the hospital, Ava sat beside his bed, her fingers clenched tightly in her lap. No silk dress, no perfume, just her, plain, bare, real, the way she should have been from the start. The bandages came off slowly. Grayson's eyes blinked open for the first time in 2 years. At first, he didn't move. Then, his gaze settled directly on her, not with surprise, not with fear, with recognition. "You're not Juliet," he said. Ava's breath caught, her throat burned. The words she'd prepared all week dissolved into nothing. "I've known," he continued, sitting upright. "Maybe not from the start, but your voice, your silence, the way you said good morning, like it meant something." Tears filled her eyes. "Why didn't you say anything?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why did you let me lie to you?" Grayson stood, slowly crossing the space between them. "Because I was waiting," he said. "Waiting to see if the person behind the lie was real and worth seeing." He gently touched her cheek, wiping away the first of many tears. "I didn't fall for the name," he whispered. "I fell for the woman who showed up every day, when she didn't have to." Ava didn't move. She didn't speak. But for the first time, standing in the full light of truth, she didn't feel afraid to be seen. After the day Grayson Hale opened his eyes, nothing exploded the way Ava expected. No shouting, no dramatic exit, no demands for answers. Just silence, careful, controlled, and impossibly heavy. For a full week, they lived under the same roof, like strangers with too much history. Grayson didn't push her away, but he didn't pull her close either. He was polite, kind, but distant. And now, when his eyes met hers, it wasn't like before. Because now, he could truly see her. And that terrified her more than his blindness ever had. She avoided eye contact, avoided their old routines. She no longer cooked breakfast or walked him through the garden. She spent her days drifting from room to room like a ghost in the house she had once tried so hard to bring to life. The guilt didn't just sit in her chest, it rooted itself into her spine, her breath, her thoughts. She knew she had to leave, but she couldn't move. Something was still holding her there, and maybe it was hope. Then came the day the silence cracked. It was late afternoon. The sky was overcast. The air smelled like pine and distant rain. Ava sat outside on an iron bench near the wilted lavender, knees pulled close, eyes fixed on nothing. Grayson stepped out quietly and sat across from her. No greetings, no pretense, just stillness. After a long pause, she spoke. "I didn't come for you," she said, her voice dry. "I came because of a promise I made to my family. Because Juliet ran, and they needed someone to finish what she started." Grayson didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened. "But I stayed," she continued, finally meeting his gaze. "Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I stayed for every night I read to you, for the moments I listened when no one else did, for the way you made me feel like I didn't have to be anyone else." His eyes searched hers, slow and steady, like he was reading a language only they spoke. "You were the only one who didn't try to control me," he said softly. "When I couldn't see, you didn't treat me like I was broken. You didn't guide me. You stood beside me." Ava blinked fast, fighting tears. "I don't need your forgiveness," she whispered. "I just need you to know who I really am, and still want me anyway." Grayson stood. For a second she thought he was walking away, but instead, he reached out his hand. "If you're still here tomorrow," he said, "then stay. Not because I need you, but because I want to start over with you. No lies, no masks, just you." Ava looked at his hand. Her fingers trembled, but she didn't hesitate. She placed hers in his, and in that moment, something cracked open inside her, not from pain, but from finally being enough. If you felt something while listening to this story, whether it was heartbreak, hope, or just that quiet ache in your chest, I want to hear from you. What part hit you the hardest? Was it Ava's silent courage, Grayson's quiet knowing, or that final moment when the truth no longer needed to hide? Tell me, if you were in Grayson's shoes, would you have forgiven Ava? And if you were Ava, would you have stayed or walked away before the truth came to light? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And more than anything, I'd love to know where in the world you're watching from. Whether you're in New York, Manila, Johannesburg, or a small town somewhere between, your presence here means more than you know. These stories aren't just fiction. They're reflections of how love, forgiveness, and truth shape our lives in quiet, powerful ways. So don't be shy. Say hi, share your feelings, and connect with others in the comments. And if this story moved you even a little, hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow, we dive into another unforgettable chapter. I promise, you won't want to miss it.